Good evening, and welcome to our discussion. Tonight, we delve into a question that is becoming increasingly pertinent in our digital age. Should governments increase regulation of cryptocurrencies? This rapidly evolving technology presents both exciting opportunities and significant challenges, prompting a global debate on the appropriate level of oversight. We have two distinguished guests with us to explore this complex issue. Mr. Samuel Miller, a seasoned financial regulator who will argue for greater governmental control, and Ms. Olivia Chen, a tech entrepreneur and strong advocate for the potential of cryptocurrencies, who believes heavy regulation could be detrimental. We will begin with opening statements from each speaker, followed by rebuttals, a moderated discussion, and finally, closing statements. Mr. Miller, please begin with your opening statement.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. I believe a robust increase in the regulation of cryptocurrencies is not just advisable, but essential for the health of our financial ecosystem and the protection of consumers. The simple truth is that the current crypto landscape is, in many respects, a Wild West environment. We've witnessed countless individuals suffer devastating financial losses due to fraudulent schemes, rug pulls, and outright scams that thrive in the absence of adequate oversight. These aren't sophisticated institutional investors in many cases. They are ordinary people lured by the promise of quick riches, only to be left with nothing. We have a responsibility to protect them. Implementing comprehensive Know Your Customer (KYC) and anti-money laundering (AML) requirements across all cryptocurrency exchanges and service providers is a critical first step. This is standard practice in traditional finance for a reason. Furthermore, the pseudo-anonymous nature of many cryptocurrencies makes them an attractive vehicle for illicit activities. We're talking about money laundering on a significant scale, the financing of terrorism, and transactions for illegal goods and services. While proponents argue for the privacy aspects, we must ask at what cost this privacy comes. Law enforcement agencies are often left struggling to trace these illicit financial flows, which poses a direct threat to our collective security. Regulation would mandate greater transparency and traceability, making it significantly harder for criminal elements to exploit these technologies. It's not about stifling technology. It's about safeguarding society. Some might argue that this is an innovative space that needs freedom to grow. I contend that no industry can truly thrive long-term without trust and legitimacy. Sensible, well-designed regulation will provide a clear framework, foster that essential trust, and ultimately allow the legitimate and beneficial aspects of cryptocurrency technology to flourish, while weeding out the bad actors. It's about maturation, not suffocation.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Chen, we now turn to you for your opening statement.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes, and thank you, Mr. Miller, for outlining your concerns. While I understand the apprehension, I firmly believe that imposing heavy-handed, premature regulation on cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology would be a profound mistake, one that could stifle one of the most significant technological innovations of our time. Cryptocurrencies are far more than just speculative assets. They are the foundation of a new decentralized internet, Web3, and the backbone of decentralized finance, or DeFi. These innovations have the potential to revolutionize countless industries, from finance and logistics to art and gaming, by increasing efficiency, transparency, and accessibility. Excessive regulation, particularly the kind that mirrors traditional financial systems, often creates high barriers to entry. This would disproportionately affect startups and smaller innovators, cementing the dominance of existing financial giants and preventing the very disruption that makes this technology so promising. We risk creating a regulatory moat that protects incumbents rather than fostering a vibrant competitive ecosystem. Moreover, let's consider the immense potential for financial inclusion. Billions of people worldwide remain unbanked or underbanked, excluded from traditional financial systems due to high fees, geographical barriers, or lack of documentation. Cryptocurrencies offer a lifeline, providing access to financial services with nothing more than a basic smartphone and internet connection. They can dramatically lower transaction costs, especially for cross-border payments, which currently are often slow and expensive. This is not a trivial matter. It's about empowering individuals and fostering economic development where it's needed most. It's about granting financial sovereignty. Instead of top-down governmental control, which often lags behind technological advancements and can be overly broad, we should encourage the development of industry best practices, robust self-regulatory frameworks, and technological solutions like advanced blockchain analytics to address risks. Education and transparency are key. The focus should be on empowering users with knowledge, not restricting their access or the innovative spirit of this transformative technology.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Mr. Miller, you now have an opportunity for a rebuttal.
Thank you. Ms. Chen speaks eloquently about innovation, and I agree that blockchain technology holds considerable promise. However, innovation cannot be pursued in a vacuum, nor can it come at the expense of fundamental consumer protections and market integrity. The idea that regulation inherently stifles innovation is a common misconception. In fact, clear and well-understood regulatory frameworks can provide the stability and predictability that businesses, including innovators, need to thrive. It creates a level playing field and reduces uncertainty, which can actually encourage investment and sustainable growth. Regarding financial inclusion, while the goal is laudable, we must be cautious. Introducing vulnerable, potentially less financially literate populations to highly volatile and largely unregulated assets without adequate safeguards could lead to disastrous outcomes. The risk of exploitation is simply too high. We could see individuals in developing nations losing what little they have on speculative ventures they don't fully understand. True financial inclusion requires safety and stability, not just access. Finally, I must reiterate the pervasive threat of illicit finance. While Ms. Chen suggests traditional systems are also misused, the scale and ease with which cryptocurrencies can be used for cross-border money laundering and terrorist financing, often with a higher degree of anonymity, present a unique and urgent challenge. Governments have a fundamental responsibility to combat these activities, and that requires regulatory tools.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Chen, your rebuttal, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Mr. Miller raises valid points about consumer protection, but I believe restrictive regulations are not the most effective solution and may even be counterproductive. Education and transparency are far more powerful tools. We need to empower users to understand the risks and make informed decisions, rather than simply trying to legislate away all potential downsides. Furthermore, existing anti-fraud laws can and should be vigorously applied to bad actors in the crypto space, just as they are in any other industry. The argument that cryptocurrencies are uniquely suited for illicit activities also warrants closer examination. Yes, illicit actors attempt to use them, just as they use cash, banks, and other financial instruments. However, the transparent and immutable nature of most blockchains means that transactions, once identified, can be traced. Blockchain analytics is a rapidly advancing field, and these tools are becoming increasingly effective at identifying and tracking illicit fund flows, sometimes more effectively than in traditional opaque systems. My concern is that overly broad or poorly designed regulations, implemented with a heavy hand, won't eliminate illicit use. Instead, they could drive these activities further underground or to jurisdictions with laxer oversight, making them even harder to track. Moreover, such regulations risk stifling the legitimate innovation that we so desperately need, essentially throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We need to be surgical, not suffocating.
Thank you both for those rebuttals. Now let's move into a more direct discussion. Mr. Miller, you advocate for increased regulation. What specific types of regulations do you believe are most urgently needed? And how can they be implemented without crushing the innovation that Ms. Chen rightly fears might be jeopardized?
Certainly, the most urgent needs are clear regulatory definitions for different types of crypto assets, distinguishing between securities, commodities, and utility tokens, for example. This clarity is foundational. Secondly, robust licensing and supervision requirements for all intermediaries, exchanges, wallet providers, and custodians are crucial. These would include capital adequacy rules, cybersecurity standards, and consumer disclosure requirements. To avoid stifling innovation, these regulations should be risk-based and principles-based where possible, rather than overly prescriptive. We can create regulatory sandboxes to allow new ideas to be tested under supervision. The goal isn't to ban, but to ensure activities are conducted responsibly within clear guardrails.
Ms. Chen, while innovation is indeed important, Mr. Miller has highlighted very real risks of fraud and market manipulation. How can the industry effectively self-regulate to address these concerns, especially when substantial financial incentives might tempt some actors to cut corners?
That's a fair question. Effective self-regulation involves several layers. Firstly, industry associations can develop and enforce codes of conduct and best practices, covering areas like security protocols, transparency and disclosures, and ethical marketing. Secondly, technology itself can play a role. Smart contracts can automate compliance for certain rules, and decentralized identity solutions can enhance KYC processes without compromising user privacy entirely. We're also seeing the rise of decentralized insurance protocols to protect users against losses from hacks. Ultimately, reputation is key in a transparent ecosystem. Platforms and projects that fail to adhere to high standards will be called out by the community and will lose users and legitimacy. While not a perfect solution on its own, it's a powerful motivator when combined with robust educational efforts and the application of existing general laws against fraud.
A question for both of you now. Cryptocurrency is a global phenomenon, transcending national borders. What is the role of international cooperation in regulating it effectively? Mr. Miller, perhaps you could start?
International cooperation is absolutely paramount. Given the borderless nature of cryptocurrencies, individual countries acting alone will struggle to implement effective regulation. Regulatory arbitrage, where companies move to jurisdictions with the weakest rules, is a significant risk. Therefore, international bodies like the Financial Stability Board and the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, must continue to develop and promote global standards for crypto regulation, particularly concerning AML-CFT measures. Coordinated enforcement actions are also essential to tackle cross-border illicit activities. Without a harmonized approach, we'll have a fragmented and ineffective regulatory landscape.
Ms. Chen, your thoughts on international cooperation?
I agree that international dialogue is important, but the nature of that cooperation is key. It should focus on establishing shared principles and information-sharing mechanisms, rather than imposing uniform, one-size-fits-all regulations across diverse jurisdictions with different economic realities and technological adoption rates. There's a danger that international bodies, often dominated by traditional financial powers, could impose overly restrictive standards that don't recognize the unique benefits cryptocurrencies offer, especially to developing nations. Cooperation should aim to foster understanding and share best practices for managing risks, while still allowing room for innovation and national policy flexibility. It should be about enabling, not just constraining.
Thank you both. We're moving towards our closing statements. Ms. Chen, you have the floor for your closing remarks.
Thank you. Throughout this discussion, I've emphasized that while the concerns raised about cryptocurrencies are understandable, our response must be measured and forward-looking. Imposing heavy, traditional financial regulations on this nascent technology risks stifling innovation, limiting its potential for financial inclusion, and undermining the very principles of decentralization and user empowerment that make it so revolutionary. We've seen how cryptocurrencies can lower barriers for the unbanked, reduce transaction costs, and offer individuals greater control over their financial lives. These are not trivial benefits. They are pathways to a more open, equitable, and efficient global financial system. The risks, such as fraud and illicit use, are real, but they are not insurmountable, nor are they unique to crypto. We should focus on robust education, fostering industry-led standards, leveraging technology like blockchain analytics, and applying existing laws judiciously. Let us not choose the path of fear and excessive control, which could push this technology into the shadows or into the hands of only a few large players. Instead, let's embrace a balanced approach, one that addresses legitimate concerns through targeted, adaptive measures, while nurturing the incredible innovative potential of cryptocurrencies to build a better financial future for everyone. The key is careful consideration, not immediate constriction.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Mr. Miller, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. My position remains firm. The time for substantially increased government regulation of cryptocurrencies is now. The arguments for doing so are compelling and rooted in the fundamental duties of any responsible government: to protect its citizens, maintain financial stability, and combat criminal activity. We have heard about the potential of innovation, and I do not dismiss it. However, this innovation has, to date, occurred in a regulatory vacuum that has left too many consumers exposed to unacceptable risks, from scams and fraud to market manipulation and the catastrophic failure of unregulated crypto entities. These losses are real and devastating. Furthermore, the use of cryptocurrencies for money laundering, terrorist financing, and other illicit purposes remains a significant threat to our security and the integrity of our financial system. We cannot allow these technologies to become safe havens for criminals. Clear, comprehensive, and internationally coordinated regulatory frameworks are not the enemy of innovation. On the contrary, they can build essential trust and legitimacy for the cryptocurrency market, encouraging broader, safer adoption and investment. Regulation provides the guardrails necessary for sustainable growth. We need proactive and adaptive regulation that can keep pace with technological advancements, ensuring that we harness the benefits while mitigating the considerable risks. It's about responsible stewardship of our financial future.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, and thank you, Ms. Chen, for a truly insightful and spirited debate this evening. You've both presented compelling arguments that highlight the multifaceted nature of this issue. Mr. Miller has underscored the urgent need for regulation to protect consumers, ensure financial stability, and prevent illicit use, arguing that this will build trust and legitimacy. Ms. Chen, conversely, has championed the innovative potential of cryptocurrencies, particularly for financial inclusion, warning that heavy-handed regulation could stifle growth and advocating for education and industry-led solutions. It's clear that finding the right balance between fostering innovation and mitigating risk is an incredibly complex challenge, one that policymakers and industry leaders worldwide will continue to grapple with. The conversation certainly doesn't end here. Thank you to our audience for joining us for this important discussion. Good evening.